Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday. Hope you're having a great day. Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com, always co-hosting with me. And Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News here. We're brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty. If you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, senior writer, Hall of Fame writer with us. You've got a bunch of content out, man. You've been pounding it out. A couple of the pieces, though, relative to the listeners. Big Ten and expansion. You talked to Kevin Warren and Trayce Jackson-Davis and the legacy he wants to leave. I'll quickly touch on the expansion because there's nothing impending. But Kevin Warren also knows that just today, that could change tomorrow.
I think he wants to leave the door open for the.
He almost has to. He has to leave the door. He didn't have a choice, right?
Yeah, I think there have been some in the business who have pushed the narrative that this is aggressively likely to happen, and logic never followed there. Now, look, if Notre Dame were interested, there would be expansion tomorrow. Like Notre Dame, the door is always going to be open for Notre Dame. They're not going to say no to them. I know that for a period of time after what happened, I think it was in the early 90s, maybe. I can't remember the time frame on that. That there were some hard feelings over Notre Dame basically getting to the altar and then changing their minds, so to speak. I don't know that it was all the way to the altar, but I know there were some hard feelings. But that's, business is business. If they can get Notre Dame to do it, they'll do that, and then they'll probably add somebody else. Now, who that would be a decision that they would have to make. But this idea that they're aggressively out there looking for expansion targets. Look, if they wanted to expand to more than USC and UCLA, it would have been done. There was no reason to delay it. It didn't make economic sense to do that, and I'm not sure it makes competitive sense to do that. So I don't believe that it's likely, unless there's some sort of market force that says this is the way it's going and you got to get on it. And I don't know that that's going to happen. I think it would be largely dependent on the ACC, and I still believe that contract is more secure. The grant of rights that the 15 ACC members signed to remain in the league, I think that's more secure than people think it is. I think people want to believe that it's easily broken because it makes for interesting conversation. And if it were easily broken, Texas and Oklahoma would be in the SEC today. They would not be hanging around the Big 12, making less money than they could in the SEC for another two. I think they're going to end up spending 3 to 4 years now. Well, I guess last year, this year. I think it's a total of 3 years that they'll have spent in the SEC subsequent to their announcement. In the Big 12 subsequent to their announcement, they're going to go to the SEC. This is not. It's not a contract easily broken. So I don't think that expansion to include an ACC member will be in short order. I mean, we're talking about that contract goes to 2036. Teams might think about starting to break it, in 22, 23, 32, 33, 34. It's hard to say those words, right? They might start thinking about breaking it then, but breaking it now basically breaks you. You make no money from television for more than a decade. That's not feasible.
And if the Big Ten is looking at expansion, is the biggest eye catcher the TV market or the program?
Well, I think that if you, like I said before, Notre Dame, it's not about TV market. It's about
definitely the program with them.
Yeah,
but Notre Dame is different. There's not a lot of Notre Dames out
right.
there.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean, other than them, what's out there that really moves the needle, even to the degree necessary because remember, so if you sign another 2 schools and they can pay for themselves in the sense that your consortium of network partners says, okay, we will up your check enough so that they can have an equal share. That's hard enough to find. I don't think there's anybody out there who does that. But even if you could, what's in it then for Indiana, Wisconsin, Northwestern, even Ohio State? What's in it for them? Having more company, making your brand less exclusive? What's in it? I don't see that. Who out there can make the check worth more than it is now? Then you start to see where those schools say, okay, well, how do you say no to more money? But, we can bring in enough to cover ourselves. I don't think that, if it's me and I'm in a competitive situation, why do I want to make it so that 2 more schools can say, hey, come to our Big Ten university and play in the Big Ten in our competition? That just makes my recruiting pool that much shallower or more crowded, whichever way you want to put that.
One of the things that I thought was interesting, Mike, is Kevin Warren talked about college football playoff expansion and the 12 teams. And one of the things that I didn't really think about and why it kind of got pushed back and pushed to the wayside initially was because he didn't want to basically implement this new system and then have a lot of questions, and he basically wanted some sort of preparation. I mean, did you get any what other details did you learn about what questions were still out there? Were there any specific questions, or did he just kind of say we had a bunch of things we hadn't addressed yet, and that's why we didn't move forward with it? I know initially conference I just lost the word, but automatic bids for conference champions was a concern or a topic. But were there other topics there that he was concerned with that have since been addressed, or was it just because there were so many questions?
I think the number one was television and what would happen with the contract if they expanded. Would it be open to multiple bidders, or would it just remain with ESPN, only they'd write a bigger check? I think that was a big part of it. What was the plan there? I think the competitive plan was part of it, from how the automatic bid process would work, if indeed they were included. And I think they were included in the original plan. How would that work? And then how would the competition work? Home sites, bowls, all that stuff. And, and so they've answered a lot of those questions in the subsequent months. So I think that made them more comfortable. I don't think that the disruption that occurred with Texas and Oklahoma, now he didn't say this, but I don't think that how that went down made anybody in college athletics comfortable. Sure. And so I think that taking a timeout, so to speak, made everybody feel a little bit better about where things were going. So I do think that was a factor as well, although that was not something he answered. The part that I asked him about, and I'm not sure that I got quite, we really got to the answer that I was hoping to get to, was about the structure of the competition. He went off on a different tack than I'd hoped to address. I asked about home sites versus neutral sites, because especially as the Big Ten commissioner, his members, those who enter, whether it's Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, or somebody else in the future that looks competitive enough to do this, they're all going to be at a competitive disadvantage when the playoff gets to the later rounds. Home sites, you earn it, you play it in, from 5 to 12. If you're 5 to 12, you get to play at home. But then you get into the bowls, and the bowls are all located in the southern footprint. The only bowl that's in the rotation that's in the current Big Ten footprint, or what will be the current Big Ten footprint, is the Rose Bowl, which will be Big Ten country in a couple of years. Right. Every other one is basically an SEC country. I don't think that's a way to stage a competition. It just doesn't seem, it doesn't seem like the most balanced way to do it. And there were a couple of columns written. Bill Trocchi from Sporting News wrote one after this weekend, the unbelievable scenes we saw at Tennessee and some other places, Utah. and Dan Wetzel from Yahoo wrote one as well. This is why that, maybe except for the possibility of the championship game, the college football Super Bowl, all those games should be played on home sites. Every one of them, even if it's going to be called too bad. I mean, that's football. The New York Giants had to play in Green Bay on the way to their Super Bowl, and they survived it and won it and went on and beat Tom Brady. That's the way it works. And other teams have to go down south and play in heat and humidity because those teams earned it. That's the way it's supposed to be. And it's also, there is no sanctity to the bowls. I mean, I think they've shown us over the last, generally, too many of them, let's put it that way, have shown us what they're about. It's not all this, we're good for college football stuff. They're good for the bowls. I don't think they need to be part of this. But, old line tradition and habit, and who knows, why, they stay into this rotation when we get to the expanded CFP. I think it's time to consider eliminating all of them.
Mike, also a great piece from Big Ten Media Days on Trayce Jackson-Davis and his legacy, so to speak. He is climbing up the board in virtually every statistical number, especially those that matter. Points, he is at 1,588 now, and I don't know exactly where that is, but it's in the top 10, I believe. He's about.
I think he's still outside the top 10, but he's within a few good games, I think, of making the top 10.
Along with almost 800 rebounds and nearly 180 blocks. But some people he will absolutely probably pass: Scott May, Mike Woodson that you mentioned, but all the guys are in front of him. In front of that, the thing that they all have in common, that they all won Big Ten national championships, and that's the thing that Trayce, his teams have not gotten close to, and this is his only and last opportunity.
Right, and I liked how conscious he was of that. I like that he didn't pretend he's not been a great player. I think he knows he's had a great career from an individual standpoint. He was a second team All-American, I believe, as a sophomore. Last year was on one or two All-America teams. Now, the Big Ten was so loaded with great players last year. I think it kind of squeezed him out of the mix. But he's been a great college player, but without much team accomplishment to show for it. He most likely, if he stays healthy, he will end up in the top 3 at IU in points, rebounds, and blocks. And no other of Indiana's great players in their wonderful history has done that. No one else stands in top 3 in points, rebounds, and blocks. But he doesn't want to get there without something to show for it from a team standpoint. Big Ten championship, Final Four, obviously national championship if they could do it. That national championship is going to be hard. I'm not sure they're built for that, but I think they could do the other two if everything goes the way it should go, in the right direction. They've got real talent there. They've got some terrific game-changing freshmen. They've got veteran guys who played a ton of college basketball, including their best player, their best 2 players, their best 3 players. Those guys have all been around for at least 4 years. When you look at Trayce, Race, and Xavier Johnson, all 3 of those guys have been in college basketball for 4 or more seasons. So the fact that they have all that going for them suggests it's possible. Now it's up to them to take it to the court and make it happen.
Mike,
Big Ten, go ahead, Dustin.
I was going to say, Mike, in your conversations, working with Big Ten Network, following Indiana, one of the things I think I've noticed is that it seems like guys like Trayce Jackson-Davis, Race Thompson, and some of the other players on the team are a little bit looser and a little bit more confident. They seem to have a little bit more of their own personality heading into the season. And I think that trickles down from their head coach. I was just curious if you've got that same vibe, or if it's just me looking for something that's not actually there. But it just seems like there's a new aura about them, a new a self-assurance, a confidence that they have that maybe we haven't seen in previous years.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Dustin. That's part of what I talked about with Trayce being comfortable saying, he didn't want to be a great player that had, that was on mediocre teams. I thought that was a great telling quote, that he had a real self-awareness there. They haven't been good enough as teams, even though they, kind of could have been a backfield team if there'd been a 2020 tournament when he was a freshman. The following year, they weren't any kind of tournament team. And then, of course, last year, they were one of the last 4 teams in the field. That's not what they want. They want to be at the front of the line. And I think they have a feeling that they can do that. But again, a lot of that means you've got to do better. You got to play better defense. You've got to play more connectedly on the floor, more minutes. No one plays 40 minutes of great basketball. That's a fallacy. That's a target to shoot for, but no one does it. But you got to play that 32, 33, 34 minutes of great basketball so that when you have your 5 or 6 where the other team has the upper hand, they can't catch it. And that's, I think that's something that Indiana will strive for this year. And, a lot of that flows from the point guard position. Xavier Johnson, really important to where this team goes. And he's, as I said, can't remember where I said it now, but he's got to be, he has to be someone who is a consistent performer on the field and off it, on the floor and off it. He's got to be really good when he's playing, but he's got to be really good when he's off the floor as well. He's somebody that controls the basketball. And when you have someone who is basically your quarterback, that player has to be someone that other players can look to be a consistent performer. And again, that goes into the locker room, that goes into the community. All that has to be there for Indiana basketball to be what it wants to be this year.
And of course, Indiana, the AP poll, the first AP poll of the season out just yesterday, Indiana, the highest ranked Big Ten team of only 3 Big Ten teams ranked, Mike, which doesn't surprise me, but the Big Ten, I think, is better than 3 teams in the top 25, which the first question is going to be who.
I was going to say, which 3?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that there's 3 more that belong in there, but
no, I mean, which, what I'm saying is if there's more than 3, which ones? Yeah.
I think that, well, first of all, you can never count out Tom Izzo and Michigan State. I know that they lost a lot, but he's just a super great coach, great recruiting. And they may not be a top 25 team right now, which is fine. I expect them to be. Purdue is going to be sneaky. Yeah, they lost a lot, but they still have an immovable object in Mount Edie, and it doesn't take a lot, and they've got solid basketball players on that roster. They may not be superstars right now, but they're all good basketball players, very, very fundamentally sound, which is Purdue basketball. And so we'll see how they do. And you cannot count out Iowa because they have another Murray brother and a McCaffrey on that team still. So they're going to, you've got 5 SEC teams. It's just hard to believe you got 5 from the SEC and only 3 from the Big Ten. It doesn't seem right.
I would agree with you about Purdue. They're kind of my sleeper. I think that if they get good point guard play, I actually think they can win the league. I like what they have there. I thought last year.
Wow, now that's a bold statement and a hot take right there.
No, I mean, it's not come on, I don't do hot takes. I think they have. I think that if they get good point guard play, they can be the surprise of the league. They've got really good basketball players around Zach. He's very talented. They're very excited about what he's become over the summer. He's obviously a lot to deal with for everyone. He insists he's capable of playing regular minutes. Regular big man minutes is basically 28 a game. Anything more than that, in situationally is a bonus. But why I say 28, because you got to stay out of foul trouble and you got to be able to handle the wear and tear of covering the court. But he insists he's capable of handling those minutes. And that would be a big thing for them, that they don't have to worry about managing his minutes from a physicality standpoint, because, it is a lot to carry 7'4", 290 up and down the floor all night. it wears on a guy. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why you'd see Kofi sometimes not getting to 28 minutes, because it's, being that big, it's hard to play at the pace that college basketball goes. And so he insists he can. And, I think that if you have him out there and able to do that, and then you have, guys like Gillis, who I think can have a really terrific year. Again, it comes down to point guard play. That's the one question they have. They brought in a transfer who can handle the ball, but isn't really a true point. And they brought in a freshman who they really like, who Matt Painter told me at Media Day that they're very excited about and believe he can do it.